Okay, we've moved a little bit to the west. We're still underneath the head frame structure, and as we pan the camera back towards the structure looking to the east, you can see the rubble that's there. It came down a few years ago, all the wooden beams. And the Metro, one of the engineering studies that we had done on this site by Metro Testing, John has with him now, and he wants to talk about how that report relates to getting this structure fixed.
Okay, the Metro Testing report pointed out a few things that are important. One of them is the method of repair, and that the problem is mostly related on the surface of the concrete. It is falling off, and there is an explanation for that. But the good news is they drilled a bunch of cores, 2-inch diameter concrete cores. They drilled them in and they took them out and they took them to their lab in Vancouver, and they determined that the concrete is sound. It doesn't have chemicals in it that are self-destructing, because some concrete does. They could have used salt water from the sea for mixing water, but apparently they didn't. And that the concrete strength inside is very high. It's like about 30 psi, which is about 30 MPa, which is about 4,500 psi, which is very high strength concrete. So what happens when you pour concrete in these vertical narrow boxes into columns is that you drop the concrete in at the top, and the concrete is made up of gravel, sand and cement and water. And if it falls through that box, it hits the rebar all the time. So then by the time it gets to the bottom, the gravel is on one side and the cement and sand paste is on the other side. So, and that's why the surfaces fall off, because the cement paste stayed on the one side. See, and then over time water gets behind there, and then with free thaw cycles it expands and the concrete falls off.
Morden was built in the very early days of the use of reinforced concrete, and probably the earliest example in the application of it to a coal mine structure. The process you're talking about, is that what they call disaggregation?
Segregation.
Segregation.
Yeah.
And but despite the appearance of the structure, it's good to know that it's basically, in many respects, sound, so that a lot of the damage is on the surface rather than right through the particular beams and supports that we're looking at. We'll take a final look over here on the edge, where there's a very interesting sloping structure that goes up to indicate some kind of weathering that's occurred that's quite different from other spots on the structure. Now we've moved over to the west side of the structure, where we have these very interesting sloping supports that go up, and on the one that's on the north side of the structure, they actually made steps in the structure going up, which are all badly eroded now, but you can still see them. There's a steel brace in place partway up the structure, that red-colored thing that you're viewing. But when the mine was operating, they would actually go up and down these steps. There was a bit of a guide wire for them to hang on to, and I imagine it was a daily occurrence. The problem in today's world is stopping kids from running up the structure, and many years ago they put this steel plate in place to try and stop them from getting to the higher parts of the structure. But you can see the moss and the weathering that's gone on here. Yet these particular sloping elements to the structure seem fairly sound in a lot of ways, don't they, John?
Yeah, they're reasonably large enough that they're not as susceptible to weather conditions by the looks of it. Yeah.
The interesting thing about this is, John and I were talking, Frederick, and you were in another part of the structure, is that every time you come back here now, you see more deterioration. There's more rebar exposed. It used to be that you would come and you'd see a little bit of change from one year to another. But now, in the last year, it just seems to be every time I come out here, there's some other area exposed. Yeah. And it really indicates that there isn't a good deal of time left for this structure to be fixed, or it'll be lost.
Once the reinforcing steel starts rusting, it expands and the process accelerates significantly. Yeah.
And this is what John Knappett was pointing out to us when he visited the structure. And yet it's interesting to make the point that all the engineers, including John Hofman here with me, who've looked at this say it can be saved. It's not an impossible situation at all. It's just that the time is running out.